Hi guys, what's good? Me bitch. So today we're just gonna do a really calm and steady paint with me. I haven't sat down and painted for a hot minute, especially with everything going down with work and my job. I had a very stressful time the last God knows how many weeks before this whole pandemic went down. And because I've been stuck at home, I decided, you know what, let's bust out the paints, let's try and reteach myself how to paint. I love painting, especially with acrylic painting. I am trying to teach myself how to do gesso painting, but it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, to be honest. It was a lot more stressful than stress relieving, which is what I wanted to do. But once I busted out the acrylic paints and I started re-adventuring the love and passion I had for painting, I had a really fun time and it really did de-stress with me. So if you want to, you can come and paint with me, or you can just simply watch and enjoy this really long time lapse. So this painting did take me a couple hours. It honestly, I did it over 2 days. That's why there's different lighting when you watch the video, is because I actually did it in little chunks of time, because honestly I can't sit still for longer than half an hour, to be honest. So I did do this over 2 days and over different sitting periods. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little time lapse. It was quite fun and quite experimental, especially with dry brushing, which is where you have a really dry, I don't know how to explain the brush, but it's just a really scratchy brush. It's not the best brush, but I just lightly dip some paint in it and then I just lightly scruff it all over the paint. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's a technique called dry brushing, and I really like that technique, so I really wanted to really experiment into it and dive into some dry brushing experiments, I guess. I also wanted to experiment with doing monochromatic shading, which is one color but different shades. It's just a fun little experiment painting. It's not the best, but you know what? At least I had fun and at least I got to experiment and play around. That's all that really matters here. And while I was painting this, I actually finally got to, you know, sit down, de-stress, and really think over the last week. The last week has been very stressful, not just on anyone in particular. It's just stressful for everybody. Having to go into stage 4 crisis in New Zealand, and for the coronavirus to actually get to New Zealand. For everyone that doesn't know, New Zealand is down at the asshole of the earth. It's actually next door to Australia. It's not in Australia. It has 3 islands. You have the North Island, South Island and the Stewart Island. So in New Zealand we did have a case of coronavirus in Auckland, which is our main city of New Zealand, in the North Island. And when that happened, everyone was like, oh yeah, we didn't really know how to react about it. Our tourism went down so badly, which put a lot of stress onto a lot of businesses, to be in fact, especially businesses where tourism is really reliable. Where I live, tourism is our main consumption. To see a lot of businesses shut down and have to close because of the impact, it was really heartbreaking, and people were losing their jobs, and it's a really hard time for all of us. By doing this painting, how weird it sounds, I really actually got to think about what actually happened and actually finally be able to actually really think and analyze what happened and how I actually feel about what's going on, and actually how it's really affected not just my health but the people around me, my job, my boss, my partner's relationships. And everyone's always saying, oh, check up on your friends, which is true. And during this time of staying at home and just being with yourself and your partner or flatmates or friends or family, it's a really good time to connect with those who you've disconnected with. And through this time, I've actually really connected with a lot of people that I had actually disconnected with due to me moving, me studying, and then me graduating, and then me removing again, getting a job, that's now day shifting instead of night shifting, because I used to night shift when I was studying. Now I do day shifting. I live somewhere that I've never lived before, and I no longer live near any of my friends. Like, I've reconnected with some people from high school. I've reconnected with my best friends. I'm reconnecting with my family. Me and my partner are reconnecting. And it's really nice to reconnect with those who you've put a distance between due to stress, job, school, studying, living in different places. Maybe you live in different countries. It's a really good time to reconnect and analyze who is really valuable to you, because this virus isn't just making people sick, it's sadly taking people's lives. Most people that are losing their lives are those with pre-existing conditions or those who are very old, and it's really sad and heartbreaking no matter what, it really is. But in saying that, it's really brought people together and made people reconnect, which is really the only good thing about this, and it's the only positive thing that I can really think about, is how I've not only reconnected with the people I disconnected with, but I've also reconnected with myself. I've been able to declutter my whole house. I've been able to declutter my art supplies. I've been able to sit down and actually finish projects that I started. I've been able to, really analyze the things that I really love to do, pick up old hobbies. Like, I've started to do cross stitch. I've been reteaching myself how to do embroidery. I've been making little crystal displacement cases. I've been sewing a lot. I really love to sew. I love sewing. But I've been sewing a lot of cosplays lately, which is really fun because I'm actually using stuff that I didn't actually realize I even had in the first place. So I'm really rediscovering a lot of stuff I didn't know about myself, or things that I've just genuinely forgot about because of stress, work, or because of this whole pandemic. I've kind of really sunken into my head and really started to panic and overanalyze and really get into my head and get into the nitty-gritties of things that really get me paranoid. And that's one thing that I really wanted to talk about over this voiceover, was about how this really does affect everyone. She is mentally draining on everybody, and everybody reacts differently to stress. I know I see a lot of people panic buying, a lot of people not admitting what's going on and just going through their everyday life, not staying inside. Some people are experiencing anxiety for the first time, whether others are having relapses of anxiety, having panic attacks and all this kind of stuff. It really hurts me knowing that people are actually experiencing panic attack and anxiety for the first time, and it's a scary thing to go through. We always talk about how we should prepare for the worst. We have people who are doomsday preppers and Armageddon preppers, and they're having a dandy time. They've got bunkers and shit like that. Like, that's the one thing that really cracks me up, is knowing that there's people out there that have been prepping for things like this for their whole life, and now they're like, ha ha ha, I have a bunker, bitch. It's just a little comedic thing that I like to remember, just to kind of lighten my head a bit. As I'm going through this pandemic and I'm watching how people on YouTube, how they're reacting to it, how they're filtering it as well. I'm watching my neighbours and seeing what they're doing, because I sit in the sunroom and I paint, and I can't help but see what everyone else is doing. We have two Karen neighbours sitting on the porch yelling at each other across their driveway because they can't go and sit next to each other and have a wine together. No, they have to sit on their porches at their houses and yell over the driveway so they can talk to each other. We have people still going on their daily walks, but you've got to, if you go and walk and you see someone on the same street as you, you've got to walk across the street so you don't go near them, The supermarkets are very intense, very anxious. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of paranoia in that one building. It's quite interesting to see how New Zealand is reacting to a pandemic we've never had before. And I'm really happy that Jacinda's actually acted very quickly on the situation, and she did what was best for us, and that was to go into isolation. And it's really sad that we had to, but it's the best. And I'm really happy that she also made that all businesses could be eligible for the wage substitute, because there was a lot of stress on a lot of people. And I really just want to emphasize the fact that right now we shouldn't be judging each other for how each other are coping with the pandemic. I know there's people still trying to go outside and have a normal everyday life, and you know, I can't blame them, because that is a coping mechanism. Acting like there's nothing going on and just going on for your every day-to-day life, it's a coping mechanism to ignore the fact that there's a pandemic, ignore the anxiety and ignore the stress and just go on. You know, it's like that saying, chuck it in the fucking bucket and move on. But in this situation, you cannot do that. You have to stay home, and you have to keep yourself and others safe. You may be young and immune to it. You may think, oh, whatever, I might not get it. But it's not the fact of if you get it, it's the fact of if someone else who's sick and has pre-existing conditions gets it. Maybe your parents, maybe your grandparents, maybe your younger siblings, or your niece or nephew, you know, they're at risk. Maybe that old lady you randomly passed today in the supermarket, she might get it. But I know it's, you know, you have to cough or whatever, it's saliva, sneeze, and another person gets it, you know. But the fact is that some people don't need to show symptoms to have the virus. It's like any other sickness. Sometimes you don't even show the signs and you have it. And it's really scary seeing people go out there and choose to ignore the fact that there's a virus going around and just go act out their every day-to-day life. It is very dangerous and it is very stressful to watch. And I get it and I understand that it is a coping mechanism to pretend like nothing's going on. But there's a difference between having a coping mechanism and being ignorant. And a lot of people, especially my generation, Gen Z, Zoomers, and Millennials, Gen Y or whatever, there's a difference between being ignorant and having a coping mechanism. You cannot call your ignorance a coping mechanism. Going around and partying, having corona parties and all that kind of stuff, that is just plain ignorance. It's not a coping mechanism. Please stay home and stay safe, not just for yourself but for others. Other people are in danger as well. You may not be in danger, but people you may know, people you may interact may be in danger. Young people can also have pre-existing medical conditions. You can't judge someone for their age. There will be people who are in their 20s or in high school, like they're in their teens, and they can still just be at risk. They could have pre-existing conditions, they could have anxiety, they could have depression, they could have bipolar, they could have whatever, you know? Or they could have actual medical conditions, they could have weak immune systems, they could have immunity problems, like myself. That's why I can't emphasize it enough to please don't judge people for how they look. Just because someone is young does not mean that they are immune, does not mean that they don't have pre-existing conditions. Everyone is at risk, no matter their age, no matter what. Everyone is at risk, especially people that are older, very young children, and people with existing medical conditions. Doesn't matter how they look, what their age is, what their sex is, what their race, gender identity, how they choose to present themselves. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't judge someone for how they look. They could have an existing condition. It's not acceptable to judge someone for how they look or how they choose to present themselves. And that's one thing that I must say, is that you are not responsible for how someone chooses to behave, act, or present themselves. That's that person's choice. If someone wants to be an arsehole, that's not your responsibility. That's their responsibility. They have to carry that on their shoulders. So if a Karen wants to be a Karen, and tell you that she's more important than you are and she needs that fucking toilet paper even though there's a limit of 2 per person, then so be it. That's her choice to be a Karen. You don't have to be a Karen. You can just go on through your day-to-day life. And the last thing I just want to say is just be kind. Right now it's not a time to hate on each other. It's a time to reconnect, to be kind, to check up on everyone. It doesn't matter if you have anything. Just check up on each other. Family, friends, those around you. Check up on your neighbour. Go, yo G, what's up, across the fence. Make sure they're okay. I can understand how extroverts are having a very hard time with this whole pandemic of staying inside. And introverts, they're having the time of their life. People like me who cosplay and have art hobbies, we're having the time of their lives. But it doesn't mean that we aren't as equally sad and lonely. I do get lonely. I do get sad. Even though I'm an introvert and I'm sewing and I'm painting and I look like I'm having the time of my life. And to be fair, I am, but I am also very lonely too. And I do miss seeing my friends. I do miss seeing other people as well. I do miss going to my job. I do miss seeing my regular customers and serving people coffee and stuff, you know. I also miss it. But I also understand the fact that staying inside is the best thing for everyone right now. And it is a very stressful time. So please do just be kind. Well, I'm going to stop talking now because I don't want to stress anyone out over this pandemic anymore. I just really want to emphasize the fact just to be kind. And you know what? Do what you put forward comes back to you. So please just be nice. If you put nice things forward, nice things will come back, you know? Well, anyway, that's all from me. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day staying inside. I have a few more videos that I have in mind to be making. I want to do a few more painting videos. I want to do some cosplay videos. I really want to do a sewing series. I also want to do a Learn With Me series. Ever since this pandemic went down, I've been researching a lot about zodiac signs and moons and Wicca, witchcraft, paganism, religion. You know, I've been really diving into the most random subjects. I already have an obsession with crystals, so I guess it only comes natural. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Staying inside, drinking water, staying happy. I know this is a hard time for everyone, but just be kind, not just to everyone around you, but be kind to yourself as well. Self-care isn't selfish.